So we are now live. Sound check 1, presenter's laptop. Sound check 1, presenter's laptop. Sound check 1, clerk's laptop. Sound check 1, clerk's laptop.
I was here all the
So
time.
we're live, folks.
Okay.
This car wouldn't start.
It's now 9:30, and I would like to call the Airport Subcommittee meeting to order. And members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. As well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. I will now commence a roll call. Please indicate your presence when I call your name. Mayor Eisenberger.
Present.
Brenda Johnson has indicated previously that she will not be here today. Councillor Collins.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Dankel.
Morning, Mr. Chairman.
Morning. Mr. Councillor Partridge.
Yes, good morning. I'm here. Thank you.
Good morning. Councillor Pauls.
I'm here, thank you.
And Councillor Whitehead is on leave, so he won't be with us today. So, Madam Clerk, are there?
Councillor Pearson.
Oh, Councillor Pearson, I just
Hi.
chatted with you all morning. I knew you were here.
Thank you.
Yeah, clerks tuned me up on that. I have to make sure I got you. Okay, Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, there are no changes, but there were revisions to item 10.1, the 2021-2022 John C. Munro Hamilton International Airport City of Hamilton Joint Marketing Initiatives, which was PED 21083.
Thank you. Can I move into second to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by Pearson, seconded by Pauls. All in favor, electronic vote. Councillor Pauls? Yep, thumbs up. I can assume that carried. It did, 7-0. Move on now to declarations of interest. Members, are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to approval of minutes. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes of October 15th, 2020 meeting? Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Danko. All in favor. We'll move on now. That carries 7-0. We'll move on to consent items. The annual audit report on the annual schedule of percentages rent comparison regarding the John C. Munro Hamilton International. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to put the report on the floor? Moved by Councillor Partridge, seconded by Councillor Mayor Eisenberger. Any discussion on it? It's nice to see it was an unqualified auditor's report there also. Seeing none, all in favor? Carry 7-0. We're going to move on now to 8. The Puckering President and CEO John C. Munro Hamilton International Airport for 2020 year in review. So welcome back, Kathy. Hope the technology works better this time. And I also understand Charles Duncan, president of Swoop, will also be speaking. So Kathy, I'll turn the floor. Oh, first of all, Kathy, I'm going to turn it over to you. So welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson, and thank you everyone else that's joining the meeting, the airport subcommittee council members. Thank you for having us today. With me, I have two of my team members, Dina Carlucci and Cole Horncastle, who you have met before. Dina will be running the presentation today, so I will cue her when I need to. And I also want to welcome Charles Duncan.
Kathy, you've cut out on us.
President and CEO of Swoop with WestJet, and he will be speaking today after my
Kathy, can I suggest you turn your camera off because you're cutting in and out. You may not have enough broadband. After today, you may.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, is that better, Councillor Ferguson?
I'll let you know if it isn't, but it is right now.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. And sorry, I can't see anyone. Before I get into the presentation, I just want to acknowledge the city of Hamilton and thank them for all of their efforts through over the past year with the pandemic. And I know my team is coordinating with various departments within the city on a regular basis in regards to our response to the pandemic. And I also want to thank the city of Hamilton for enabling me to be a member on the Mayor's Task Force for Economic Recovery. And that's been a great exercise. It's providing a lot of value to the community. Before I get into my presentation today, I also want to acknowledge and recognize the passing of Tony Battaglia, who was the founder of Tradeport International Corporation and was behind the bid to the city in 1995, 1996. He lost his battle with cancer earlier this year, and I do want to recognize the efforts that Tony had and the vision that he saw for our airport and the partnership opportunity that he saw for us and with the city of Hamilton. So acknowledging his passing and just respecting everything that he presented. We're very happy to be carrying on his legacy. So today I'm going to quickly walk through the presentation. If I may take about 10 minutes to review 2020 before I will welcome Charles Duncan to the meeting, and happy to take questions throughout the presentation. Dina, moving to slide 2, 2020 year in review. We opened last year with much optimism. We were focusing on our core objectives, which was to grow passenger business, to grow our cargo business, to invest in facilities, and we were optimistic to obtain a lease extension for the longer term. Obviously, we knew what was lurking around the corner. And what I want to do today is just speak about all the successes that we actually accomplished during the year. On slide 3, I'm a slight overview of some of those successes and realizing that while we did see a 66% decline in our passenger activity, we are proud of the fact that that was much less of a decline than what other airports around the world actually saw. And at the same time, we were able to see a 24% increase in our cargo activity. And as we continued to make some of the largest investments into the airport through capital investment. But most importantly is that we kept our people safe and we responded really quickly to all the measures that needed to be put in place that kept those that had to work at the airport protected, and as well as those that were traveling through our airport on their journeys were also safe through that experience. So moving to the next slide, airport operations, it's really the kudos to the team on completing the airport's, most important project in a year of COVID. Largest capital investment that the airport has ever seen in a single year. And what this actually has done is created capacity for us for the longer term. We've modernized and rehabilitated our 10,000-foot runway that is setting us up for the future. And we did that alongside the federal government, who was contributing a portion of that project. We finished the project under budget and ahead of schedule, and did it while we still continued to manage the airport on a 24/7 basis and did not interfere with the operations whatsoever. Moving to the next slide. Health and safety, and I know that's been very much at the forefront these days with what's happening with COVID. It's always been the #1 priority for us at the airport, and our quick response to dealing with the issues that emerged last March created the environment for safe travel through the entire year, continuing this year. The priorities that were important to us, obviously, was how do you minimize the interaction of people? How do you keep distancing and at a maximum and minimizing the amount of contact in an industry where crowding and lining up is always part of the process? What we prided ourselves on was the messaging and the communication that we were getting out to all the travelers and the employees, and maintaining that level of confidence that travel by air was still safe to do. So moving into the passenger operations, and we'll pause there for one moment. It's unfortunate that we did see the decline, and again, looking at an unparalleled year where government restrictions, travel advisories, border closures just made it impossible to travel as we focused on health and safety. Having a 66% decrease in our passenger traffic, again, not as bad as what you were seeing in a lot of other airports. Our travelers are visit family, friends, and that leisure. So we weren't exposed to the same type of reductions that you would see from the business community that stopped traveling. And we do have a very strong, robust domestic product, which enabled those that had to travel for essential reasons to continuing to use our airport. Charles will share a little bit more on this when we get to the end of the presentation. And I'll continue to move through the presentation now, if there isn't any questions on the passenger operations today.
Yeah, Kathy, just for your information, I can't tell if someone has a question because the screen is, once your presentation is over, you can take it down and I can look for questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ferguson. So our cargo operations, we're obviously very proud of the decision that the City of Hamilton made and Tradeport made in 1996 to diversify our revenue between passenger, cargo, and land development. Cargo definitely stood out in 2020, although we've been very proud of it for 2 decades now. Our decision to focus in this area and enable development of on-site cargo operators enabled us to respond really quickly last year to the trends that were being seen in e-commerce. A 24% increase in cargo over the prior year it was a significant increase. And what's going on right now is our cargo operators are expanding their facilities. Some of them are at capacity during peak, and they are also considering fleet expansions as well. Moving to the next slide. Very proud of the fact that in 2020, we truly became global, introducing new international markets into London to Heathrow and into JFK. Well, you'll see on the map those new 3 sustainable 3 times a week flights into those longer term routes. That was really important. And what happened last year is we actually gained a lot of global recognition for reaching out and tapping into these new markets. And what it's enabling our carriers to do is truly using our airport now for cargo 24 hours a day, where you're seeing the international flights are happening during the day, where normally our domestic cargo continues to move during the night. So recognizing that we are also Canada's largest dedicated cargo airport in Canada, what's happened now with passenger activity, slowing down at most of the other airports, the movement of goods has actually been seen as a priority for a lot of other airports, and they're watching what's actually going on in Hamilton. And a lot of the airlines and the airports around the world had to find different ways to actually move goods, because traditionally they move through the bellies of passenger aircraft that are now grounded because of the restrictions related to the pandemic. So people have been watching us closely. I will say there's some envy in the fact that we have had this dedicated fleet of cargo aircraft and partners in Hamilton that have been moving goods for a long time. And they were able to seize those immediate opportunities that presented themselves in March. So moving to the next slide. And what I mean by that is Cargojet immediately responded to the federal government's request to bring necessary equipment and medical supplies into Canada starting in late March of 2020. So we had 100 inbound flights from China providing essential products and goods to Canadians that entered through Hamilton. We also received the country's first shipment of the vaccine late last year, and that came in on a UPS flight. So as we were able to respond to that and seize those opportunities, those continue to happen today. But what's important to share with you right now is 2 of our main partners, Cargojet and their affiliation with Amazon, who is a shareholder in Cargojet's operation, are expanding their facilities in Hamilton, as we all know, but they're also expanding their aircraft fleet and adding more wide-body aircraft 767s. And Cargojet has announced 777s will be added to their fleet starting in 2023. And we're very optimistic, being Cargojet's hub operation in Hamilton, that those aircraft expansions will soon be seen in Hamilton. So moving to the next slide, what very much goes hand in hand with cargo is the land development and the need to actually have investment by our third parties. The role of an airport, obviously, is to not only move passengers and goods, but it's also to drive economic activity, job creation, and that third party investment into the airport. And what we saw in 2020 was 4 major projects that are taking advantage of that. KFA and Mohawk College, again, diversifying from the passenger and cargo business, is adding that academic presence into the airport, which is so important to train those individuals to get into aviation and into maintenance and into repair of those aircraft, into the aircraft that are based here or are traveling to Hamilton for that work. Moving on to the next slide. We also saw some very key projects expanding in Hamilton with DHL and the Amazon facility. For DHL, continuing to drive home the fact that growth is happening here. This facility that was decided upon almost 2 years ago now is almost complete, will quadruple the capacity for DHL and enable them to seize the opportunities of growth that they are seeing now, but also prepare for the future. And what DHL's facility means to Hamilton, it is an international gateway into Canada, and it will be their largest here, but it also will be their 4th largest in the world, falling right behind 3 that are currently in Leipzig, Hong Kong, and Cincinnati. And the introduction of the Heathrow flight last year, what that means is those goods are coming directly from Europe into Canada and bypassing their major hubs, coming into this international gateway that we're hopeful will someday be a mini hub for DHL, really putting Hamilton on the map. So we're very eager to have the facility open. We understand late May, early June. So stay tuned for an invitation to likely a virtual ribbon cutting for that facility when it's safe to do so. And the other one worth recognizing is the Amazon facility, which is off airport property, not on the airport, but the strong relationship that Amazon has with Cargojet as a shareholder within Cargojet, and goods are moving today through those Cargojet planes. We're very hopeful that this fulfillment center that's off the end of a runway may someday be integrated into the airfield through a through the fence agreement, but also will be generating future capacity for the airport as a whole. What all of these facilities actually mean right now for us is how are we moving goods, not only by air, but on the road? And what's not outlined on this slide is the announcement that was made a few weeks ago by the province of Ontario and the widening of Highway 6. And the importance of that is as these goods continue to increase and grow and move by air, there is that increased pressure on the ground transportation network as well. So we were very pleased to hear about this announcement to expanding the capacity for road connectivity into the airport and around the airport and enabling both on-airport and off-airport developments to continue to grow and expand in the area of goods movement and trade. And one other thing to mention with the DHL facility coming to completion, land is actually at a premium right now in Hamilton, and it's great to see all the investment. Okay, I've just lost sound.
Yeah, you're back now, though. We still can't hear you, Kathy.
Can you hear me still, Counselor Ferguson?
Yeah, now you just come back right this second.
Okay, I have taken off my headset. I apologize for the technical difficulties here. Please cue me if you,
I will. I'll let you know
Okay.
if you lose sound again.
thank you. So I think where I was positioning here is just on the availability of land and the interest that we're seeing now on airport and off airport. On airport land is in small supply. So working with the City of Hamilton, Economic Development and Planning on opportunities adjacent to the airport is really where our focus needs to be now. And moving to the next slide, I've borrowed a slide from the city's economic development presentation that was shared earlier this year. And we're very pleased to see the projects that have jumped to the top of the list. And the four that are, involvement of our airport is the Amazon Panattoni, the DHL, and the KF Aerospace. But what's exciting to see is these businesses that are actually being attracted to Hamilton because of the price of land. And what we're hearing from our partners is it's much easier to construct facilities in Hamilton than other areas for which they've been used to building in. So we're excited to be part of the city as it with its goals and advancing those key projects to help satisfy their stretch targets, and definitely continuing to do that. What I would like to comment on, though, is the off-airport development by Panattoni and the Amazon Fulfillment Center. Is we've been very active in that project, even though it is off airport. And what happens is the regulatory requirements for building adjacent to an airport and for constructing facilities that are impacting the airspace so close to an airport. We've helped supported Amazon and Panattoni through the regulatory approvals. And we monitor and work with them on a daily basis to ensure all regulatory compliance and safe airport air operations while those cranes are in the air and while that construction is underway. So we've been working really closely with the city as well, keeping them updated on that role. And as further developments happen adjacent to the airport, we will be in a really good position to continue to advance them along as quickly as we can. So moving to the next slide, quickly just mentioning the foreign trade zone designation, for which we've been working on for quite some time. Very much want to thank the City of Hamilton and the Hamilton and Oshawa Port Authority for all coming together over the past 18 months to get this across the finish line. And why this is so important for us is it actually strengthens Hamilton's position in the region as another tool that we have to attract industry to Hamilton. And that's really what we're looking to do, is how do we get those aviation related investment projects happening in Hamilton, continue to grow the economy, create those jobs, and increase economic impacts for the city. So moving to the next slide, the airport, we all know, is operating in a residential community, and we recognize the importance of the interactions that we have with those communities. Moving into the next slide is last year, we continued to act on our environmental responsibility program, acting on our plans and really understanding the importance that we play in aviation and in the impacts that we do have on carbon, and having a program to respond to that. So our focus last year was really on energy efficiencies, sustainable activities, and stormwater solutions. We're proud of our completing year 3 of our program with Sustainable Hamilton, and we are on track with our targets to have a 20% reduction over 10 years. Working on sustainable activities, our runway construction program last year was really the highlight that enabled us to repurpose grindings off of that runway and reuse them for other future projects. And then again, replacement of lighting both on the runway and in our terminal building
with improved and more modernized LED lighting. And we are continuing to work with the city on advancing some solutions for our stormwater and having some solutions there to help manage the de-icing that is absolutely required to facilitate both passenger and cargo aircraft in winter weather in southern Ontario. And moving to the next part of our responsibility program is just managing noise. And while we did experience an increase in 2020, it's worth mentioning that the reason for those increases for two events. The runway rehabilitation and modernization project. So as we had some runway closures on the main runway for that construction last year, increased use on the secondary runway that is not used as often, just created some interest from those that are in that vicinity that were able to see the aircraft and made those calls. So we were happy to see that those inquiries reduce once the airfield was commissioned in October, and we continued to respond to them as we received them. The other one that's interesting happened in December as those people that like to get away for the Canadian winter and travel south saw a creative way to get across the border with the use of helicopters that were flying either in and out of Hamilton or out of Niagara, and did create a lot of excitement with those that were seeing the frequent helicopter activity over the city of Hamilton. So we continue to monitor those. And what we've done in response to the increases in noises is we've made our website a little bit more robust over the past couple of months so that it may be able to answer some of the questions more proactively when those calls are actually put forward. And then moving to the last slide in our community involvement, it's really how do we give back to the community? Our focus is obviously on Hamilton and the village of Mount Hope. So we've listed a lot of the events that we continued to move forward last year, and where we may not have made cash contributions, it was more of in kind with our staff contributing to some of these programs. And very happy that we were able to continue to support Mount Hope and Councillor Johnson's riding. So moving into the financial section, just really quickly, as expected, we would have seen our revenues decrease at the same time that we were reducing our costs where we could, maintaining a focus at all times on safety and security and the health and well-being of our people. What we needed to do was ensure that we had a reserve that we could transfer into our capital investment program, which is on the next slide. Airports, again, are very much asset intensive. And what we need to do is always have a robust maintenance and expansionary capital investment program. And again, repeating the $23 million that we invested last year into our capital program, the largest that we've ever made in our lifetime, and is also part of the historical $333 million that, along with our tenants, we've invested in infrastructure since we became the operator for the city. And just a reminder that all of that investment does vest back to the city at the end of our lease term. Moving into the next slide is just a recap on the payments that Tradeports presented to the city last year. And in a year with a significant decline, we were very happy to see at the end of the year we were still able to contribute $935,000 to the city, and we were only off by about 6% from what we paid in the prior year. Moving into the next slide, building on the payments that we've made to the city, we add in the direct taxes that our passenger and cargo partners are contributing as well. And what's interesting to see, of that $2.2 million in total that was paid last year, our cargo partners are paying about 43% of that total payment to the city, the same as what the airport is paying, and our passenger operations and others contributing about 14%. The next slide, looking forward to 2021, well, we're almost at the end of April, we're 4 months in. We've really been looking forward to vaccine rollouts across the country, and very hopeful that we will see a light at the end of the tunnel or blue skies ahead. I heard the mayor mention earlier on this call that hopefully in the fall, like we're hoping on September, we were hoping that we would see some better progress made for the summer. And I don't want to steal any of Charles's thunder, but what I will say is, as we continue to support our cargo partners in the land development that continues to grow, we are thrilled that Swoop has made some announcements recently. They will be adding new routes to our 2021 program over last year. They are serving a market that is leisure travel, and that will be, what is first to recover and rebound. And working together and promoting why Hamilton is the best market for growth when safe recovery is ready is really our opportunity. And we're so excited on working with Swoop, connecting our region domestically, and then working on what will the recovery plan look like once safe travel is ready, and when we will be able to really go to market and promote that. So our real goal right now for 2020 is how are we restoring that confidence, and what is our marketing approach to for safe travel, ensuring that we are responding and paying attention to those travel restrictions that are still in place. So promoting Hamilton as a destination is our #1 priority this year. And so it is with pleasure that I do want to now introduce Charles Duncan, President and CEO of Swoop Airlines. He's going to discuss some plans that we've been working on for recovery, the opportunities that are ahead for the ultra low cost carriers in Canada, as well as Swoop's continued commitment to Hamilton International. And I want to thank Charles for joining us today, and I'm really excited to hear more about what you have to say.
Kathy, what would it be appropriate that we just turn to questions on your very thorough presentation? It's a very interesting presentation before we go over to Charles.
Definitely.
Does anybody have any questions for Kathy before we move on to Charles? Because it's very thorough. I guess you got, Councillor Partridge. Can't hear you yet, Judy.
There we go.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Kathy, excellent presentation. Thank you so much. I just want to go back to, I believe it was Amazon you were talking about, which is currently being built off airport land right now, and near the end of one of the runways. And you mentioned about the through the fence agreement. It seems to me that we had a discussion about this at the last meeting. I'm just wondering, what's the status of that? And what's
Kathy?
the process that's involved?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Partridge, for that question. This is very much a 2021 priority for us, and we've been discussing it at length with our board, as well as we engaged a consultant. We've shared some preliminary information with city staff, and we're optimistic to have this wrapped up we gave ourselves 6 to 9 months, but looking at the fall, to really understand what is the operational process to enable this to happen, and then what is the fee structure. What our outcome will be is to have a tool that can be presented to the city and to be used by any developers that are interested in promoting this as an opportunity to connect into the airfield. And so directly to answer that question, or to have this completed in this current year.
Thank you, Kathy, and Chair. I appreciate that update. And I'm just, does this type of an agreement exist with other airports at all that you know of?
Again, through the chair, it is rare. They do happen, and I think what you're going to see is they're going to become probably more predominant in airports where you have less land available within the airport boundary. What we found through our review is it's really not much different than giving permissions to those operators that are currently on the airport. And it's really just adhering to the regulatory requirements that they must comply with for airport safety. So it will just be a matter of entering into those agreements. And what we would hope is that we stand out as the leader in this, and be one of the first airports in Canada that's actually really promoting this, because they are not used very often at this point.
But it does make sense, Chair, and when I heard it earlier in the presentation too, in talking about the land availability and how we're running out of land at the airport. So there is going to be more off airport development. And it makes sense to really, kudos to you folks for taking the lead on this, particularly the fact that it's kind of a rare tool, if you will, that needs to be part of the toolbox. So, but great work on that. Thanks very much, Kathy. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I have no other speakers who are requesting to speak. So Kathy, thanks again for a very thorough presentation. Obviously, it answered all our questions as you went. So congratulations.
So through the chair, it
Oh,
looks
Councillor
like Councillor
Pauls.
Pauls. And just a reminder that the chat is the speakers list is active.
Thank you. And I did put on the speakers list there, but I guess it didn't show. But Kathy, I wanted to ask you, you said there was 66 decline in passenger. We're still having people coming in. What is the type of protocol? Do you do the screening? And like Toronto, do you have to provide a hotel for isolation? Is it the same as in Toronto?
So through the chair, currently, Councillor Pauls, we are only serving domestic travelers that don't have those same type of quarantine rules on entering into the province of Ontario. So we don't have those. Screening right now for passengers entering the airport to depart on a flight, they are getting just temperature checks at the gate by the ground handler for the air carrier. So that is the protocols that are in place right now for domestic travel in Canada at an airport our size.
So you're not taking the temperature coming back, just as they go, and then coming back, they just come in and that's it?
And through the chair, so I would assume that all the airports where the passenger is departing from to return back to Hamilton, those checks are being taken there. Our longest haul flight today would be coming out of Abbotsford. So you're looking at a 4 to a 5 hour flight on a aircraft where that temperature check would have been taken.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Collins.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
You're fine.
Perfect. Thank you. Through you to Kathy. Kathy, you mentioned the overstrength agreements that we have and trying to finalize that with Public Works. Is there any timeline associated with resolving some of those longstanding issues at the airport?
Kathy?
Through the chair, Councillor Collins, we are currently in active discussions with the city right now. I believe there were some dates that we have right now. Our current agreements are running to September. We're considering what options are after that point in time. We don't have any firm dates now, but it is a very active file today.
Okay. And that would require either another agreement or new infrastructure to accommodate whatever's required, or both.
And through the chair, I believe it may be a combination of all of those, as well as, in addition to potentially infrastructure, existing equipment, there may also be a compromise on perhaps reduced flow as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
Welcome.
Okay, thanks. I don't see any other speakers. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Charles Duncan, the CEO of Swoop, who is a very important player at our Hamilton Airport. And hopefully they come back and be stronger than ever. So Charles, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, hey, thank you very much, Chairman, for the introduction, and Kathy as well. It's been really great just to listen to the entire presentation, and I just thought we'd give a quick update on Swoop. But before I do that, just to reflect, and maybe this may be lost on you. I suspect it's not, but just kudos to the City of Hamilton and the Airport Authority and Vantage for diversifying into cargo in particular, and I think that diversification has served you really well as you are the cargo hub now for Canada. And I'll tell you, Kathy is probably modest, but I don't know this for a fact, but I would bet money that Hamilton will be the only airport in the country that has that had revenues exceeding expenses in 2020. You know, I mean, I would think every other airport in the country has lost vast sums, and that's due to your diversification. So just, you know, kudos to that. And you know, I'm sure or hope most are aware of Swoop, we are what's called an ultra low cost carrier, and it's a new form of airline, or at least new to Canada. They've been around around the world for, well, really back to the late 90s, so more than 20 years now. But what's really exciting, I think, as I reflected on Kathy's presentation, and how Hamilton Airport is positioned as we're looking in global markets that are recovering with passenger travel more quickly than Canada. Without exception, it's the ultra low cost carrier end of the market, the more price sensitive. And as Kathy said, it's leisure, but it's not only leisure, well, you know, in the sense of non-business travel, but it's primarily, you know, people visiting friends and relatives. It's my parents coming and seeing their grandkids, and you know, that sort of travel is what we're seeing globally come back first and come back very, very quickly. We know that there's a lot of pent-up demand for travel when it's safe to do so, and I believe Hamilton Airport is very well positioned to take advantage of that growth, much as you have in you know, with cargo over the past year. So I think you're well positioned, and as I just want to share that optimism with you, because I'll tell you, you know, certainly running any passenger airline, and in particular in Canada over the last 14 months, has been anything but a positive or optimistic experience. So we do this sort of grasp onto the rays of hope where they exist. I thought I always enjoy taking questions, and I hope you have some for me. I'll just give you just a quick overview. I thought I would just talk about the past year, and even to touch on, I think it was Councillor Burns, so I can tell you more about what we're doing for COVID and our safety protocols, which are quite extensive. Talk about you know, the road to recovery as we see it, because we're not there yet, but we think it's coming soon. And then talk more specifically about Swoop's presence in Hamilton, and what our plans are for the future. So going back to February, and I remember meeting Kathy one night late, I think it was in March, you know, there at your airport, as we knew the world had changed for our business, you know, quite dramatically. We have been and continued to essentially operate, you know, essential service only. And we dialed back from roughly 25 cities to 4 in our network, and Hamilton, of course, being a primary one there. And we went from flying airplanes 7 days a week to only 4 days a week, and we called it the Swoop Sprint was our branding name for it, but it was one airplane. And if you can sort of imagine a map, the airplane would start the morning in Halifax and continue to Hamilton, and then go on to Edmonton and finish the day in Abbotsford. It was one airplane, and we were selling people almost like a bus or a train, getting on and off at the various stops. And we did have a small number of people who would fly from Halifax to Abbotsford over the course of the day, but not many. And that was just our way of keeping the lights on, so to speak, and having an essential level of service, because we have had people who have absolutely had to travel, you know, through the pandemic. But it's meant that we have been flying at a 90% reduction in our capacity. And again, I look at the at that profit and loss numbers that Kathy posted with envy, because we have been and continue to lose quite a bit of money, as I think all airlines are globally, you know, through getting us through this challenge and pandemic. So you know, we've tried a little bit here and there to add a service, or you know, it's been sort of one step forward, one step back, as we've been responding to the travel advisories and also demand in the market. And we're still, you know, at this point, just flying 3 times a week from Hamilton to Edmonton and Abbotsford is where our service is now. So it really does pale in comparison to what it was in February of 2020, which feels so distant. But you know, in terms of the safety protocols, we've certainly learned a lot. And as Kathy rightly said, we of course follow all Transport Canada and federal public health regulations and guidelines. We are taking everyone's temperature before they board the aircraft, but importantly, we have a lengthy survey around, an attestation, if you will, that each traveler has to answer about his or her personal health and exposure and travel and so forth, which they have to, answer, correctly before we let them on the airplane. We do that both online as well as at the airport to reconfirm before travel. We are cleaning the airplanes. Quite diligently, and frankly, much more than we did in the past before the pandemic. And I think that will be one of the lasting legacies of COVID. Will be on cabin cleaning and so forth. We're using electrostatic spraying to disinfect the airplane in between flights, and we're also giving every traveler, when you board, a disinfecting wipe so that they can have their own peace of mind and wipe down their own seating area. As well. Again, as we've already cleaned it. We want to give people the extra peace of mind, and they can do it themselves. And I can tell you, the airplanes have never been cleaner. And in fact, I believe even Dr. Teresa Tam has said that they are not aware of a single case of transmission on board an aircraft, in Canada. So we do report out whenever we're aware of someone who's been positive and tested positive after the fact. We go back and trace and let those customers know, and we post that on our website. But we've been quite vigilant in all of the reporting, and again, we're not aware of a single case of transmission on board an aircraft. And one element too, I could go on and on about this, but I do want to move on to other topics. The our aircraft have what are called Hepa filters, which are high efficiency filters that are used in hospital emergency rooms, and the air is circulated completely every 2 minutes on an aircraft, and it goes from the ceiling to the floor, not sort of horizontally but vertically, and so the way the air circulates and the way that it's filtered and exchanged with the outside air through the engines also helps to ensure that the aircraft environment is truly among the safest and cleanest that you'll find anywhere. Certainly, it's far safer to be on one of our aircraft to Abbotsford than it would be to go to Costco and do your weekly grocery run, as we all have to do. So hopefully, happy to answer any questions on any of that, but hopefully gives people some peace of mind and sense around the responsibility we're taking and the seriousness with which we take it to be clean and safe, and to not be seen as a vector or spreaders of the pandemic. One of the challenges, and I appreciate, Kathy had said earlier, I had hoped to be in Hamilton in person, and I certainly have been there a few times over the past year when I came on and assumed responsibility for Swoop. We know we're in a tough time right now, and not only in Ontario, but in various provinces across the country. But we are optimistic about the vaccine rollout and what it means for ultimately opening the country back up. And one of our challenges is we have to plan our schedules several months in advance. And we also need to be, communicating those schedules and selling those tickets for a time when we know it will be safe to travel, even though it isn't, right now. And we're focusing on the essential travel today. And we are optimistic that this summer will be better than last summer. And that doesn't mean we'll be fully recovered by any stretch. But as I mentioned, last summer, we were only serving, we had the Halifax service, we had the Edmonton service, and then continuing on to Abbotsford. We will have those services this summer, but flying nonstop with more seats allocated. And then in addition, we'll be serving Kelowna and Winnipeg from Hamilton. So it's actually, I hesitate to say significant growth, but I guess off of a low base, we are adding more service, and we're quite hopeful that both, it'll be on the leisure side of the market, as Kathy has said, but that we'll be able to tap into that pent up demand for people to connect with family and loved ones, and whether it's providing a BC and Alberta vacation for people in Hamilton and that area, but also to bring people from these other areas into Hamilton for tourism, whether it's coming to hopefully we have a CFL season and a Tiger Cats game perhaps, or going to the Niagara region, or the other great things that there are to do in Southern Ontario. And you really do have a beautiful city, and we're really proud to be promoting Hamilton to all of our travelers across the country. And so, maybe just to speak a little bit about, about our presence, Hamilton was our first airport that Swoop served. We began service almost 3 years ago. In fact, we'll be celebrating our third birthday on June 20th, and I'm hopeful that it'll be safe to have an event at the airport and really to thank the community for its support. It is a unique business model. We're really proud of offering incredibly low fares, but and ultimately stimulating demand and travel, in ways that just weren't possible or aren't possible with the higher fares of more traditional airlines. And so we're looking forward to that, and we'll certainly be monitoring bookings and demand and adjusting our plans. We've had to do this for the past 14 months, and we'll continue doing it. So everything I've described is sort of the optimistic scenario, if you will, and we've got to be optimistic and plan for what we know will be a brighter future. But if things are worse, we'll have to adjust the other way as well. But the other aspect, which I'm much more certain about, is positive prospects for the coming winter. And we're studying plans now. We hope in the next, call it 4 to 6 weeks, to come out with an announcement about what our winter flying plans will be. And we're certainly excited about that. And one of the things, I think it was Councillor Burns again with her question and asked about international flying. At this point, the federal government only allows international flights into 4 Canadian airports, and Hamilton is not one of those 4 major hubs. And so one of the things that we frankly, humbly could use some help with is just some messaging that we do need to be thinking about, what a reopening looks like, and to be thinking, it's not today, but that it does take many months to lay the groundwork to begin a reopening, whether that's for domestic travel, but especially for international as well. And based on all the data that we've seen around the vaccine rollout and plans, for it, we have no doubt that this winter should be quite strong, and that certainly if my house is any indication, we've got to go somewhere south, this coming winter, or we're going to lose our minds in the Duncan household. So maybe I will stop there. I mean, I hope it's given at least a little bit of context and information to sort of whet your appetite. But I do just want to thank you for the opportunity, and certainly thank the city of Hamilton for your unwavering support. We've done really, really well in Hamilton over these almost 3 years, and we really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Charles, for your presentation today. I'm feeling older today, though. This is the 3rd time I've been involved in the resurfacing or paving of the runway 1230. And CIOs are looking younger and younger to me. And obviously climbed to the top of this organization at a very young age. And so congratulations on that.
I don't feel that young, I'll tell you, especially after the past year. It has aged me quite a bit, at least on the inside.
I'll just turn the chair over if I can to Councillor Pearson. There's no request yet, but I'll ask some questions to you. First of all, sure. Charles, you arrived with great fanfare. No, not you, but Swoop did 3 years ago. And then we were deeply disappointed as a city because we really threw out the welcome mat for you. And then last year you decided to pull up with most of your flights and move them to Toronto. Are they coming back after the COVID is finished?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. Look, I would reframe it differently. It's not, we did enter Toronto, and we did that at the end of October at Pearson. And I actually glad you asked the question, because it gives me an opportunity to sort of plant an ask or a request. We came in with great fanfare, and as I've said sincerely, we really are grateful to the city of Hamilton, and we've done well in Hamilton. So don't take that decision to mean that we were unhappy or not just unhappy with Hamilton. But what we've come to learn, and this is where Hamilton is perhaps different than other cities that are similarly situated with ultra low cost carriers in different parts of the world, is that we found that the Toronto market is quite distinct from the Hamilton market in terms of catchment areas. And so when we came in, we sincerely thought that we could sell and market Swoop to the entire GTA and draw people to the airport from the broader region. And in fact, and maybe the best way to the sort of litmus test to sort of relay to you is if we were to stop 10 people outside Union Station, or similar places in Toronto, None of them, and maybe this is maybe a slight exaggeration, but very, very, very few would be aware that Hamilton has an airport, and even fewer would consider Hamilton for their travel journeys. And the reason for that, I believe, is that it's quite difficult, and I've done it, to get from the Hamilton airport off of an airplane to get to Union Station, through the combination of, there is a bus from the airport, and this is all pre-COVID, and so forth, but to get from the Hamilton airport to the GO station in downtown Hamilton, and then to find a GO train that with a schedule to get you downtown, it's quite time intensive. And so I think for that reason, people in large parts of the GTA just aren't considering the airport, in part of their travel options. And so I wouldn't, I would not think about it. In fact, we don't think about opening Toronto as Hamilton's loss. We're just viewing them as literally two different catchment areas and two different markets. And I think the opportunity for Hamilton, and I've told Kathy this, and Kathy is constantly reminding me that she wants to get to 1 million passengers through the airport and grow beyond that. And I think the way to do that is to continue to cultivate and grow. And we're doing well with the 800,000 odd people in Hamilton and Niagara. I mean, you have a big catchment area. I mean, I'm talking to you from Calgary with 1.4 million. So Hamilton, it is a large population base, and we can continue to do well there. But if we're to really grow and get to the next level, we need to figure out, how do we expand the catchment area, and how do we make the Hamilton airport, more attractive and more accessible for an even larger part of the metropolitan area there in Toronto. Hopefully that helps. Kathy tells me.
I suspect maybe you're pulling at the wrong spot at Union Station. You should go to square one. I don't think a lot of people would expect people in downtown Toronto who can just jump on a train at Union Station and go up to Pearson pretty quick. But if you think it's difficult to get west to Hamilton, try going east to Toronto. It's not an easy process. So our community was very disappointed when you pulled out. So are you happy with the service, apart from COVID? Are you happy with what you're doing in Toronto?
Oh, we are. And listen, I mean, we've never pulled out of Hamilton. We've never left Hamilton, and we've been.
But you took a lot of flights out.
No, well, no, we didn't. The way I would characterize it, I mean, this was in October of 2020, and so we had a minimal level of service prior, and that continued just to, because it's essential level of service only. So no, I mean, I think it's comparing it to apples and oranges. If you look at our schedule before COVID in Hamilton and with a COVID schedule, but no, I mean, we maintained what I would call a minimal level of service. And it's separate and distinct, in terms of the markets and the catchment areas, as I said. So don't think of it as leaving Hamilton. We've never left Hamilton and never intend to.
Okay, I'll open it up to questions from other committee members, whether no one's indicated yet. Is there any questions for Charles? You got the CAO online here. Yeah, Councillor Pauls.
Thank you. You talked about international destinations, and I'm wondering if the border is closed, because I heard it could be closed till 2022, and if it is closed, are flying permitted? I know they are from Toronto. Is Hamilton the same?
Well, all I can do is tell you what the rules are right now. And the rules today are that international flights for passengers are only allowed into 4 Canadian airports. Those are Montreal, Toronto, Pearson, Calgary, and Vancouver. And so the federal government will have to. It's actually what's called a NOTAM, a notice to airmen. But through that procedure, they've closed the airspace to any international flight. Except for those 4 airports. So, ultimately, we do expect the government to lift, those restrictions. But I wouldn't. It would be unwise to speculate, on the plan and the details of that. I mean, we're not the policymaker in that regard.
Yeah. I have a brother that lives in Windsor. He's an engineer and he goes to Detroit, and they told him basically that he won't be traveling anymore, at least up to the borders closed till the end of 2021. So I don't know
Nice.
so that's why I'm interested to see if Hamilton would be affected. So.
I'll tell you, I can answer the question in a couple of ways. We think about it. I'm getting some feedback. I don't know if it's anything I can do or. So Liz, there are a couple of ways about it. I mean, firstly, that's better. It's hard to think when you're hearing your voice thrown back at you. One, for this summer, we're focusing on domestic travel, and not international. And the market is generally domestic oriented in the summer months anyway. And we know, so we're trying to focus on safely restarting domestic travel this summer. So I would just sort of share that, first. But the second point, and it's a real issue, for us, is that we don't want to give Canadians, certainly people in Southern Ontario, a reason to cross the border for lower airfares, right? We know, we're certain that our business model as an ultra low cost carrier and working with the Hamilton Airport, which is just tailor made for that kind of service as well. Working together, we can provide domestic travel, but also international travel, and keep people flying Hamilton on a Canadian airline. And so ultimately, but our mind for international is really for the coming winter. And we define winter by October, so maybe earlier than you'd expect, but we would love to, and we're hoping and certainly planning at this point to have international service for the coming winter.
Thank you. I overstayed. I'll tell you, I love traveling in Hamilton when I went to the States. Scoop, it's been great. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Well, thank you. And I see no other speakers wishing to. Kathy, do you have a comment? Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I was just going to respond to Councillor Paul's question as well, and just to reinforce the fact that we are also watching what is happening with those 4 airports that are designated right now, and working very closely with the Canadian Airports Council on behalf of all the Canadian airports on influencing any policy changes to ensure that, when it is safe to do so, that we are back on that list. And one of the concerns that's being raised as well is that you're seeing responses right now in the airports in the United States that are adjacent to a Canadian border, and the ability for them to put new routes in place there to satisfy anybody that can get across the border would make Canada less competitive into those routes. So as a network of airports, very much putting pressure on when it is safe to do so, to make sure that this policy change doesn't lag. Thank you.
Okay, I see no other speakers. So Charles, thank you for coming in today. And I look forward to you making an announcement shortly that you made a mistake going to Pearson and you're bringing everything back to Hamilton. The people in Hamilton miss you. They like the frequency of flights. You were really getting traction here, we thought. And so we look forward to you coming back, and I appreciate you coming out and joining us today and taking these tough questions, because I think there are questions that needed to be asked.
Well, Liz, thank you for the time. And again, I would just say we never left, and we do look forward to continuing our growth. We really do. And we're getting back on a growth trajectory is probably the better way to put it. But thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Can I have a motion to receive both Kathy's and Charles' presentation, moved by Councillor Pauls, seconded by Councillor Pearson? All in favor, electronic vote. Councillor Partridge? Thumbs up. It carries 7-0. Well, thanks again, Kathy. Hold all the delegations that come in to do that update and the discussion around Swoop. And, once again, Charles, we miss you. Let's move on to item 10. This is the John C. Monroe Hamilton International Airport Joint Marketing Initiative. There is a report before you. So can I have a mover and a second to put it on the floor? Moved by Pearson, seconded by Eisenberger. Any questions or discussions on the recommendation? Seeing none, all in favor, electronic vote. That carries 7-0. I'm going to move on now to item 1. Can I move in a seconder to approve the closed session minutes of October 15th, 2020? Moved by Pearson, seconded by Danko. Any questions on them? Seeing none, all in favor. Won't take it, so I'll give you a thumbs up. I'm hitting submit vote and it won't go. Okay, that's carried. So we will now go into closed sessions for items 4.2 and 14.3. May I please have a motion to move into closed session respecting 14.2 and 14.3 pursuant to section 9.1 subsection A, C, and K of the city's procedural bylaw 2121 and section 239.2 subsections A, C, and K of the Ontario Municipal Act 2001. As amended, as the subject property pertains to the security of property of the municipality or local board. A proposal or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried out on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Can I have a mover and a seconder? So moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Pauls. All in favor? And that carries. Members of the public, the meeting will continue following the closed session portion of the meeting. And a reminder to all members of the committee to please ensure you are moved in a closed session portion of eScribe. And before we move into closed session, I would ask external participants to please now exit WebEx. And once the clerk has confirmed that everyone has left who needs to, we can commence in camera. You'll let us know, Angela, when you're ready. Okay. Let me just got to move. Oh, shoot. I just disconnected from eScribe. Okay. Before we reconvene in open session, just a reminder to, I didn't hear you.
So through the chair, we can just move right to 14.2 now.
Okay. So trade port lease negotiation status update. May I please have a mover and a seconder. Just let me just load this up again. A mover and a seconder for the following, that the direction provided to staff in closed session be approved and remain confidential. And that report PED 19084E respecting the Tradeport International Corporation lease negotiation status update and its appendices remain confidential. So I need a mover and a seconder on that. Moved by Councillor Collins, seconded by Councillor Partridge. All in favor? Councillor Pearson?
Did we come out of closed session?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I didn't have that on my thing. Sorry. Thank you.
So are you okay with the motion? Carries 7-0. On the real estate leasing matter related to Hamilton National Airport, I need a mover and a seconder for the following. The direction provided to staff in closed session be approved and remain confidential, and report CM 21005 respecting real estate and leasing matters related to Hamilton International Airport remain confidential. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Collins. Any discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carried 7-0. I see now a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Pierce, seconded by Councillor Pauls. All in favor. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well done.
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.